So the first two coloured pictorial stamps of the empire, and the question is, how is it that it's come from North Borneo, which is run by a private company, had their royal charter in 1881, so like the East India Company, but very late onto the scene. They're there to actually make money for their shareholders and for their directors. And Labuan, which is a tiny island about 8 miles off the coast of North Borneo. So that's the contents. I guess you can read as well as I can. I thought I'd give a little bit of context, actually, about the territories and a little bit of their early philatelic history. So we move on, hopefully, to the next slide. Right, always like a map, do like a map. This is from about 1900, and this is when the empire was fully established in the Southeast Asia. And all the pink bits, of course, are part of the British Empire, and northern coast of the big island of Borneo. But the southern part, of course, was the Dutch East Indies at that time. And British North Borneo is up at the top of the map. And Labuan Island, you can maybe just about see, and it's in the Brunei Bay, and there it is. And of course, Singapore, which was everything went really centered around Singapore, certainly as far as shipping is concerned. So this is a early map, well, I say early, about 1850, of the northern part of Borneo. At that time, the title to the land was shared by the Sultan of Brunei, and it was known as Brunei proper, and the Sultan of Sulu, which is in the Philippines, which is the sort of this side of the island. The only bit of pink which is on the island, on that island at this early stage, is the Sarawak. And Raja James Brooke had got established there in 1846. So it was still very much just centered around the, excuse me, around the Sarawak River. So we move on. Right, the Labuan became a colony in 1846, December the 24th. So we're sort of moving up to that date, I guess, at least a day. And here is the ceremony of the raising of the flag. You see the British fleet is in the background. And note that they are still is very much a sailing ships. And we've got the dignitaries of the Brunei court and the soldiers here, the Marines in the background, and the Union Jack flying high. So that's the actual ceremony from the Illustrated London News, which there are many pictures from that period to date from. Right, a couple of years later, and this is so my internet connection is unstable, which is not going to be very helpful. So hopefully we can keep going. Right, the main of interest here is we've got a paddle boat, an early paddle boat. So we're talking about 1848, I think. This sketch was made off the coast of Labuan Island, and this was very much the changeover from sail to steam, which is the main reason actually why Labuan became a British colony. So a little bit more about that later. Well, probably in the next. Well, it's situated more or less midway between Singapore and Ceylon, and at that stage the ships didn't have a particularly large range, as the early steamships, and they nearly needed bunkering facilities every 1,000 miles or so. And so the island of Labuan was situated very nicely, ideally between those two well-established colonies. So we move on. So that's really the first map of Labuan, which actually shows any of the features of the island. Labuan is about half to a third the size of the Isle of Wight. And at the time it became a colony, there was no population, no permanent population anyway, although it's very fertile. although it's got a very good deep water harbour. It also, coal had been discovered up in the north of the island as well. So got the proposed site for the Victoria, the town in Labuan. Why wasn't it populated? Well, that was because of the pirates which were coming over from the Philippines. Fairly large sailing ships, carrying maybe several dozen pirates and fleets of 100 or so. A fearsome lot. And if you encountered a pirate, the best thing that could probably happen to you was you'd be made a slave. Everything would be stolen, and you'd be maybe killed. So anybody, well, nobody lived around the coast of North Borneo. Everybody had retreated up the rivers to get away from the depredations of the pirates. The Sultan of Brunei actually ceded the island to the British Crown. He was persuaded to do so because he'd actually been sheltering the pirates and probably taking a cut of their bounty. And this annoyed the British because they were interfering with shipping to Singapore. And so it was we moored, or the British Navy moored one of their ships in Brunei Harbour opposite his palace, and said, we think it'd be a very, very good idea, as you've been a very naughty boy, if you actually would cede this island to us. And he thought about it for at least 30 seconds and decided to do it. So that's how it became a British colony. So the first governor was James Brooke, but not for very long because he had plenty to do down in his new territory of Sarawak. It was hoped that it might become Singapore. And there's the monument, which was put up at more or less at the time of Labuan becoming a colony, to actually commemorate the British possession of Labuan. So the Deepwater Harbour was of course a very good staging point for the British Navy in their anti-piracy activities. And here we have, just once again from the Illustrated London News, showing back in 1845 the Royal Marines from the China Squadron attacking the fortifications of the pirates following attack on British ships. So good action. There's the pirate. They had forts. They had forts at the head of the rivers in British Borneo. Sorry, Northern Borneo, not yet British. So Admiral of the Fleet was. I've got a very annoying bar on top of my page. Anyway, the Admiral of the Fleet's what's his name? Captain Keppel. Became a friend of James Brooke and assisted him in actions against the pirates. And James Brooke had a couple of ships which he used along with the China Squadron to attack the pirates and get them away from the northern coast of Borneo. And they became friends, and here we are. And a few years later, 1852, a letter from James Brooke, an original, which I'm very lucky to get, inviting him for tea, which seems to be a very nice, civilised to do, back in Reigate, when James had obviously gone for a bit of rest and recuperation. So this is the panorama of the harbour. So these are Edwardian postcards, a series of three, none, 2 and 3, which actually join together, but my screen isn't wide enough to show them. Okay, and they do join together very nicely, showing the harbour of Labuan. As you notice, it ain't no Singapore. Things are very quiet indeed. And there, in fact, on the bottom right is the governor, the offices of the governor, and somewhere in there, maybe that's a little plaque which says post office. Labuan had just the one town and just one post office for right up to the Second World War, in fact, just the one town. Right, so we've got some early picture postcards here. The coal mine was a drift mine. It went under the sea and often flooded. and there's a couple of views of the coal mine top, and this is the northern part of the island, and so this narrow gauge railway was built going down to the port of Victoria, and there's a ship being coaled the hard way with coolies with sacks of coal on their backs coaling the ship. Right, get to some stamps. The first stamps, Labuan became a member of the UP in 1878, needed stamps. So the first stamps were issued in 1879. Recess is printed by De La Rue. They didn't need very many stamps. Those are the 4 values of the stamps which they had in 1879, totaled 9,180 stamps, and a cost of 7 shillings and 9pence, which did include the metal box of which the stamps were sent out to Labuan. Obviously, De La Rue really wanted this contract for 2 reasons. They've been printing from Bradbury Wilkinson's plates, recess plates, for many years to various colonies, but they never actually made their own recess plates. And they decided, because of the intricacy of this design, I think particularly because of the Arabic writing and the Chinese writing on the left and the right value tablets, that they actually needed to recess print these rather than the usual surface printing. And they didn't need many stamps, so in fact sheets of 10 sufficed, so they're obviously fairly cheap to make the plates. They kept ownership of the plates, so really they were just they were just finding the paper and obviously the cost of producing them. These are from the De La Rue archives. There was only one sheet of 10 of each of these values of the specimen stamps, and apparently there's no other specimen stamps from this particular issue. So these, as they were actually produced for the De La Rue archives, and you see they're dated 24th of 12th. That's interesting, actually, isn't it? That's just an anniversary of the foundation of Labuan as a colony. Well. I hadn't actually noticed that coincidence. Anyway, so there's these specimen stamps, and here's a sheet of 10 from that first issue of the 16 cents. There's a sheet of 10 of the 2 cents. That's one sheet of 10 of the 2 cents, which I think is in the Royal Collection, or in the British from the Taplin collection. These were printed on revenue paper. And the watermark is sideways. I think you probably can see it at the bottom in the margins there. So there's the crown here, and there's the CA. Okay, so the watermark the paper was originally for revenue stamps, the long revenue stamps which De La Rue were printing, and presumably they had these left over, and the Crown agents were quite happy for them to use up this paper on this first issue of Labuan. So that was a member of the UPU, so it didn't need to have any other stamps when it was sending mail abroad. So this is the earliest known registered cover from Labuan. So it's a triple rate cover to the USA. On Her Majesty's service, official covers to the UK did not need stamps, but overseas, outside the Empire, they did need stamps. And here it says a registered cover. The rather nasty stain, of course, is from the wax seal, which was used to seal the envelope. But that's part of its history. Right. Now I'll move on to North Borneo. So in 1881, it got its Royal Charter. This map was produced for the company, North Borneo Company Limited, to actually show them what they've got. And what they've got is this bit at the top of the island. You can see here there is Labuan, and the pink bit there, and here is Sarawak, as it expanded somewhat. a little bit piecemeal by the look of it, basically by ceding, well, having land ceded to it from the Brunei, the sultans of Brunei, who are always basically the Brunei was a failed country. It also had title over this area, large area. It had no control over this area, so it was quite happy to actually sell off parts of Brunei territory to Sarawak and later on the North Borneo Company. So they spent the 19th century nibbling away at the Brunei territory. Right, so as I said, it was a private company. It ended up with a capital of £2 million worth of shares, which had been issued over the period of the North Borneo Company, which was dissolved after the Second World War, and North Borneo became a colony because of the damage which was inflicted on it by the Japanese and during its liberation. It was bombed to bits, basically. Before being liberated, it couldn't carry on. It had no assets, so it was actually bought out by the British Crown. See there's the arms of the Borneo. So it was a company. It had its headquarters in the City of London. It had shareholders which would like to have a dividend every now and again. And obviously it was obliged to hold annual meetings of its shareholders to report progress. So here we have the cards, rather handsome daughter-fifth cards, which were sent out by the company, letting them know what was happening. And you see quite, I mean, these are great use of these halfpenny cards. Prior to the issue of the first stamps in 1883, as I said, it was had its charter in 1881, and it had actually been started to have been settled before it got its charter. So there was a settlement at Sandakan. Well, it was originally a Levapura, but at Sandakan. But it had no stamps. But it had no North Borneo stamps. But it had the stamps of Labuan, would be in the offices of the governor there, and there's 5 covers. So if you were sending a mail from North Borneo, you were via Labuan, you'd actually use Labuan stamps, which were, as they were in North Borneo. So there were 5. This is the earliest known covers from North Borneo. The 5 covers, they came onto the market from a family archive, all from one of the members of the family, Barclay Pollock, to his sister. They can still contain letters. That's why we know that they are from Sandakan. So this is part of the enclosed letter from this in this envelope. Dated Sandakan, May the 21st, 1882. And there's his seal, as is a junior member of the government there in Sandakan, with his seal in English, Jawi, which is Arabic language, and Chinese. So, design of the stamps of British North Borneo. From 1883 until 1894, they're all printed by lithography by Blades East and Blades. Their head office was actually in Abchurch Lane, just down from the current premises of the Royal Philatelic Society, which is all rather nice. I say all the stamps were based on the arms of British North Borneo, the low values on the shield and the higher values on the whole coat of arms. So this is the first stamp. It was for local mail only, as you could only use it internally and presumably to Labuan, but there's none with those surviving, but also to Singapore. And we'll see more about that later. So these are the first stamps, 2 cents for local mail only, and these are file copies were not members of UPUs. They weren't actually sending any specimen stamps out at this time. But these are file copies, presumably, in the archives of the printers. And as you can see, are overprinted, cancelled, well, not overprinted, perforated, cancelled perfins, which covers 3 of these low value stamps. So printed in sheets of 50 by Blazes and Blades, lithographed. This is from the second printing of the 2-cent stamp, and it's actually identified by the stamp here. And there's quite a big flaw called the smoke ring flaw on the stamp here, which identifies it to be the second printing. So more stamps were required, and the printers were asked to prepare plates for 4 cents and 8 cents values, which they did. They needed the higher values for registered mail, and also to get mail out to Singapore. So they did so for all the denominations which they thought would be required. The higher values, of course, would be not for postage, but for fiscal use. The 12-cent stamp was never issued, but the rest were eventually issued over the ensuing years. So, as I said, it was not a member of the UPU, so to actually get mailed out to the UK, which typically would go via Singapore, you needed to have straight settlement stamps, which once again were kept in the post office in North Borneo. And here we have a one cover which I do own this one here, which is a combination cover, and I do not own this one, which is a registered cover. And as you can see, double rate cover from Elopura to the UK, and that is in 1884. And this one is from Elopura. The settlement was moved, and it eventually became Sandan. And here we have a single rate cover, 1885. So, views of Victoria. So Labuan was a failing colony. It didn't become like the new Singapore, had just the one town, and you see on the left is the main street in that one town, and it's got Chinese shop houses on one side only, looking fairly down the hill, and there's a back street looking like a typical Malay kampong. So not a lot is happening. So it was losing money, and to reduce the expenditure, the Colonial Office asked the British North Borneo Company, would you please administer Labuan for us, as you're so just 8 miles away? Maybe you could do this. Well, it was a feather in the cap of the British North Borneo Company, which was a protectorate at this time, not a colony. But of course, they knew it was going to cost them, so they took 4 years to actually think about it, and then eventually said, "Okay." So now this does include the post office and the issue of Labuan stamps. And the company took advantage of this to increase revenue. I mean, a lot of the revenue for North Borneo itself was coming from the sale of stamps to collectors. So subsequent, I mean, those first printings of stamps, I should have said that 9,000 stamps in 1879 are expected to last for 3 or 4 years. So that's a couple of thousand stamps sold per year. Not a lot, like your village post office, I should think, or rather less. But anyway, they only lasted 1 year because the philatelic market got to hear about Labuan. So subsequent printing vastly increased to actually supply the philatelic market. And excess stock was cancelled to order for wholesale sale. So this is the final printing, the same design as the first printing, but these, because of the greatly increased numbers, 50 to 100,000 of each value, not even sent to Labuan. This is a time issue. And so the printers actually, De La Rue still resorted to lithography because it's cheaper, and they made up larger plates of 30 plates of 30. And they're very, very scarce postal use because they'd have to be sent out to an agent in Labuan to do so, but very common CTO. And they were being extensively forged. So there's two types which are sort of commonly found of this last issue. Easy to forge, so the lithography, and there's no watermark because they're no longer a crown colony, so they no longer have to use CA paper, Crown Asian paper. So the post office was, or Borneo Post Office, which was controlling the stamps from Labuan, issue of stamps, but just would directly communicate with the printers and not go via the Crown agents. So they were there, no watermark, lithography, very easy to forge, and they were. Although stamps are common and CTO very common, but nevertheless, somebody thought it was worth their while. Could possibly be Korean, but I don't think anybody actually knows who forged them. But quite well done. A second lot, maybe by Fournier, maybe not. If anybody knows, I'd like to know. So this is most commonly found one, usually cancelled with oval 9 broad bars, which is similar to the CTO cancellation, which was actually being used for CTO genuine Labuan stamps. So anyway, both have been forged. And there's the genuine cancel to order, and there's the forgery cancel to order. Rather rough, fairly easily distinguished because of a very thick line over the Queen's mouth, and some of the colours are not good, particularly the 2 cent and the 40 cent are not very good matches at all. Right, so here's a map of the North Borneo. This came from their annual report, which would be sent out to the shareholders on request. And there you see the Labuan, which is a small island in the Brunei Bay. They have built or have installed a telegraph line here. And at this time, this is, I can't remember the date, about 1910, something like that. By this time, a railway had been built in North Borneo along the coast and up the Padas Gorge and to the port of Western on the coast here, which would be the nearest port to Labuan. Right, so carry on. So this is the last issue of North Borneo before the pictorials. So the same overall design as the first set in 1883. This was once again printed by lithography, once again no watermark, very extensively forged, this time by Carême and Fournier. They're extremely common stamps indeed, and you can still see these of the forgeries, and I show a few of the forgeries here. So despite having a face value of a little bit under 40 cents, which is about 2 shillings in old money, and also available CTO for about a penny wholesale, forged on 3 occasions, initially by Carême, possibly just shortly after the actual issue, maybe even contemporary with it to its use, and then rather later by Fournier, and they're very crude forgeries in the 1920s thought to derive from India. So probably most of you will have heard of Fournier, prolific forger. When he ceased trading, stock was bought by the Philatelic Union of Geneva, who produced albums containing examples of production, overprinted faux, as you see here. But in fact, the North Borneo stamps were actually a mixture of Carême and Fournier forgeries, which had got into that Geneva album. I think they had a pretty close relationship. The Fournier forgeries are in fact identical, have the same flaws, which identify them as forgeries as the Carême. So obviously they had acquired the dye proof, the dye at least for each values from Carême. So, well, what were they going to do about it? They were no longer selling very many stamps to the philatelic market. stamps were being forged, and so they're losing revenue. So they really thought they had to do something. But in fact, initially they thought, well, they're getting a bit fed up for one reason or another, blades. So they thought they'd just go to a different printer. First of all, thinking of De La Rue, because De La Rue was still printing the stamps for Labuan. So they thought they'd go to De La Rue and ask them to produce some stamps for Labuan. Initially, they were thinking about using the same old design, but obviously inscribed Labuan rather than North Borneo. So here's a letter. Unfortunately, it is a copy of a letter. I'd love to own it, which actually is talking about, could you give us some idea of the cost, etc., for producing a set of stamps? And I say we're thinking of, once again, using the same old design which have been using for North Borneo. But Waterloo had just developed their two-plate printing process which could be used for pictorials, and could have two different colours. And so the North Borneo company had obviously found out about this, or maybe Waterloo made sure they found out about it. Of course, the North Borneo being not a colony, but a protectorate and a private company, they don't have to show the monarch's head. So they're ideally placed to actually, unlike most colonies, ideally placed to actually take advantage of this new technology. So they became, by happenstance, the first territory within the empire to have two-colour pictorials. Now, the plates some of the plates from this first issue actually came onto the market, I think in the 1980s, and some of them were actually, and four of them were the frame plates of this 1894 set, and they were bought by a dealer, Ricky Richardson, I think, was based in Malta, I think it was, and he had printed in a sort of colour which is sort of mostly or somewhat near the colour of the issue stamp, on sheets of 100. One sheet of 100 colour and one sheet of 100 in black. And we have a block 25. I think that's as big as you'll find. The one sheet of 100, they're each actually initialed on the reverse RR in soft pencil. And the plates were defaced, and I believe they're now with the Royal Philatelic Society in their museum. So these are still around, and you often see them on eBay, these reprints. But they're quite interesting. And there's the 2-cent value as well. And as you can see what they're doing, they're printing the flame plate and then using leaving a white space, if you like, for the head plate to be printed on top of the initial printing of the frame plate. So you can see how it's done there, which makes us an interesting item. So there's the 2-cent in black, and there's nice die proofs, all values in many different colour combinations, and very handsome they are too. But they do fetch a pretty penny these days. People do like die proofs, especially when they're as pretty as this. And there's some of the other values as well. Oh dear, something's gone wrong. I'm sorry about that. There was a first day cover with the full set of the 1 to 24 cent on that slide. Well, I can see what I can do about it, but not now. I'll just keep on going, I think. And anyway, Waterloo were pleased with what they produced, and the stamps, the actual issue stamps, were sheets of 100, and of course they were gummed, and a bit unwieldy for their salesmen to actually take around to show prospective customers. And so they produced isolated plates of 9, as you can see here, printed in different colours to the actual stamps, and overprinted Waterloo and Sons Limited specimen. And you see they presumably they must have been hand stamped, tremendously good very well done, because they are pretty identical in the position, but somebody made a mistake and missed out the first stamp and then did it twice on the second stamp, as you can see there. So an interesting variety of these nice little sheets of 9. So here is actually a now Labuan was still a crown colony, although it's been administered by the British North Borneo Company. And because it was a colony, there was an annual report that was required, called a Blue Book, which we sent on by the governor to the colonial office, talking about what has happened within the colony. Well, typically not a lot has happened in the colony. I mean, here we are, the big news is that a derelict ship was found and towed into Labuan. And Sir Charles Brooke on an HMS Pygmy, presumably a small boat, made a short stay. And the only legislative measures were 2 ordinances provide for the suppression of traffic in fictitious postage stamps, which is quite interesting. And there it is, signed by Lester P. gunner of both Labuan and North Borneo. So the postal news was that the old postal labels, i.e. the stamps with the design of the shield of the North Borneo Company, had been discontinued, and a new series introduced by British North Borneo Company, be similar in pattern though different in colour to those used in the state of North Borneo. And they're surcharged for the name of the colony. Well, it says surcharged, but it's not quite how it happened. The North Borneo stamps were selling very nicely, the new ones, and so they thought they would cash in on this. As it did happen, they didn't need to, because North Borneo stamps could be used in Labuan, but they decided they wanted to, because to raise a bit more money. And so they produced these pictorials for Labuan, same design for both the frame plate, but the vignette, instead of having to put them through the stamps through the press again to overprint Labuan, they actually re-engraved the vignette plate with the words Labuan so positioned at the top there that it actually covered the North Borneo on the original, on the frame plate. So the frame plate had North Borneo on it. The vignette now had Labuan over it, so positioned that the Labuan went over the North Borneo. Quite neat, really. And the North Borneo were generally reckoned to be pretty naughty boys when it came to issue of stamps, and they got a lot naughtier actually after the First World War. But anyway, so you could say they took advantage of the philatelic market. But despite that, over the 10 years that the issuing, well, 13 years, which actually they were administering Labuan, they just made those issues there. So the definitives, 1 cent to 24 cents, which you should have been seeing, but you haven't, and the commemorative overprints, which I'll show later, and then reprints, which they needed to do because the first stamps only had the values in English, and they thought they should have the values in Jawi and in Chinese for the native populations. So they needed those reprints, those new issue in 1897. The letter post was, Empire letter post was reduced to equivalent of a penny, which is 4 cents as far as North Borneo was concerned. They didn't have any 4-cent stamps, so they overprinted the 1897 stamps, 4 cents, surcharged them on the 1897 definitives, 5 cents to 24 cents. New values, when they actually got round to making new values a year or two later, 4 cents and 10 cents, which they actually needed. 60 cents they didn't actually need, but it did commemorate the railway. And postage dues, and then a very not required issue, which is another lot of 4-cent surcharges. But I thought by that stage they probably knew that they were no longer being administering Labuan, so they decided to make hay. But that's not a hell of a lot of stamps, and certainly 24 cents is equivalent to six old pennies. So they're not actually being as naughty as say we are at the moment, as issuing new stamps and flooding the philatelic market. Right, there are the pictorials. Now, as you can see, that's what the pictorials look like for North Borneo, but in different colours to the North Borneo stamps. Printed by Waterloo and Sons. There's several printings, and so you get. They had several perforators on the go, and they used whatever was actually available at the time for the different printings they were producing. So a plethora of different perforations, which is fairly boring, really. But there we are. So that's the Labuan sets. And Labuan, well, North Borneo and Labuan were members of the UPU by this stage. And of course, they needed to send specimen stamps out to the UPU in Geneva to actually then be distributed to UPU members. And typically at this time, they were distributed in groups of 5 to the members of the UPU. And this is how they would have been sent to them. And this probably from the various archives of the members of the UPU. They're fairly scarce to still be in their strips of 5. And although they're pretty good at printing, I mean, lovely printing, really, and the registration is usually very good. As you can see here, they weren't terribly good at perforating, so you get quite a lot of imperf between. The imperf all round are probably from proof sheets. Oh, well, isn't that great? Okay. Right. That was a sheet of, or part of a sheet of 100 cancelled to order. You can see that they are cancelled to order because they're cancelled with, you can't see, but I can describe. They're cancelled order with something which is quite like a cancellation, which is similar to the actual contemporary cancellation in Labuan, an over 9 thick bars. But unlike the genuine ones, which typically get splodged over the face of the stamp, to save time, they were neatly put in the middle of a block of 4 to actually save time. You only had to plonk them 25 times instead of 100 times to actually cover the sheet. Anyway, did all this finagling, getting stamps from Labuan actually work? Well, you see, it did. The amount of the increase in postal revenue in 1895, I think, compared to 1894, was quite remarkable. Really, it went up from 3,700 to actually 8,200. So there was so it went up by 3,700. So it nearly doubled. And of course, it's all money for nothing because you don't actually have to deliver any stamps, any envelopes or any when you actually sell stamps to stamp collectors. So yes, it was definitely worth doing, and it's a fairly substantial part of the total income for Labuan. So yes, it was definitely worth doing. So the next set after the definitives that I showed before was the Jubilee issue. Now, very modest once again. So this is the 50th anniversary of the foundation of Labuan. So we're talking about 1846 to 1896. So the Labuan stamps were overprinted in 3 lines, as you can see here. And to actually produce specimen stamps for the UPU, they actually went vertical, as you can see here. So it's a very crowded stamp, but 1 cent to 8 cents. So hardly be said to milking the philatelic market. And the total face value is something like a France or something in old money. So they're quite modest. So that's the specimen stamps, and so I've showed one below here is a major error. On each sheet of 100 of these vertical ones, on row 310, okay, row 3, number 10, the E of Jubilee has dropped off the form. So I guess it's Jubilee, okay, rather than Jubilee. And there would have only been 4 or 5 sheets of the specimen stamps produced, and there is one of them without the E. So there could only have been 4 or 5 of these actually existing at any time. So it's got a certificate with such things to need. And there's some more varieties. The 1 cent was initially overprinted in a sort of brownish orange, which wasn't very good, not very distinctive. So it was reissued in a black overprint. And here's one of these jubile errors on the 2 cents. So all the vertical stamps have that error on, because using the same form. And even a treble overprint here. So somehow it got through the, well, it's printer's waste, pencil to order, but has actually got onto the philatelic market. I say the North Borneo company is always looking for a few extra pennies from stamp collectors. And we've got one cover anyway. So this is a cover of the philatelic cover, obviously, of the Jubilee issue. With both the registration hand stamps, which Labuan used at the time. The big R and oval have been used from earliest times, actually. As soon as they had more or less, as soon as they had a post office. But in fact, the horseshoe that you see here just above it came in much later. I think it was still being used. I guess that when the envelope was actually accepted for registration at the post office, they clogged it, the R in the oval. But when it was sort of entered into the day book, into the post office records, it was then and stamped with the cachet that we see here, and the number that was entered into the registration book was actually put onto the envelope, so it could be traced. What was also rather interesting is that it's got the post office Labuan cachet there at the bottom, which is rather scarce. It's cancelled 10 months before issue. Well, it's got the wrong year's slug, obviously, so that's just somebody's made a mistake when they set up the CDS for the day. And that's the end. And my apologies for the omissions. I had something gone wrong somewhere. It was there when I looked at it this morning. On this afternoon. That's the way of technology. Anyway, if anybody's got any questions,
John, can you go back to that last slide, please?
I'll do my best. Yeah. There we go.
You said it's franked with a set cancelled 1895. That's definitely 1896.
Third register cover for set cancelled.
I'm looking at the 1896 overprint, aren't I?
Yeah, you are. Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, you can see a 5 there.
Yeah, get back in your box, Simon.
There's a 5. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a simple mistake.
Yes.
Yeah. Does anybody know about Mr. Roach or Mrs. Roach? Obviously, a stamp collector, or in the family, I guess. So down the Isle of Wight, yes. Anyway, so anybody else want me to go back to a previous slide? If not, just go to normal view, maybe. Any other questions? No? Shall we go? Shall I stop sharing screen then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Roger.
Yes.
You enable to do that? Yep. Oh, here we are. Stop sharing. Here we go, at the top, isn't it there? There we go. Well, I say once again, my apologies. I don't know what happened, but that's technology for you. At least it is for me.
Good, John. If there's any questions people want to ask at this point, please ask now.
Yes, good evening, everybody. This is the first time I've been able to watch one of these Borneo Philatelic Society ceramic specialists Zoom meetings, because it's at a sensible time. So thank you very much for making that arrangement. I had 2 comments, one of which both of which I actually put in the chat and got a reply for one of them. You mentioned that Labuan was halfway between Ceylon and Singapore, which of course is not so. Labuan is halfway between Singapore and Hong Kong.
Sorry, I do beg your pardon. Yes,
So that's a minor error which you might.
I will correct that. Thank you very much.
Don't you think it's halfway between Ceylon and Hong Kong? Certainly not halfway between Singapore and Hong Kong. It's very close to Singapore.
Well, it's 700 miles, I think. So it's if you're using coal, you probably need to get some more, which is why it ended up there. However, rather more importantly, I think was the Pollock cover, which you showed, John. And I think you suggested that the Labuan stamp was put on in Sandakan.
Yes.
Why do you think that?
I think because I think likewise with the Strait Settlement stamps, I think they had a stock of Labuan stamps so that they could be forwarded, and of course the charge would come to the North Borneo Company rather than to Labuan.
Yeah, but that suggests that there was a functioning post office in Sandakan.
Well, I don't think it wouldn't be a post office. It wouldn't be a post office.
2 or 3 years before the 1883 stamp was issued.
No, I don't see why not. There would have certainly been. I mean, think of Labuan. There was a functioning post office decades before the first Labuan stamps were issued, because there are some, envelopes, pre-stamped envelopes from Labuan. And I think what happened was that the post office would have been in the governors. I mean, in the main governors, hang on,
this is.
It would be the administration of Sandakan would actually include a desk, which might have been the treasurer's desk, which actually would have some of the Bullen stamps in it, and would cover a very small amount of mail, which actually was coming from North Borneo at the time, prior to the issue of the stamps. So I think there would be a postal arrangements would be set up right at the very beginning of the settlement, because post was so important to actually anybody within these outposts of the empire. You could actually tell from those Pollock letters, actually, all they've actually got in them is the comings and goings of shipping into Sandakan.
Yes, which I would like to put a different proposal. And your last comment about the comings and goings of shipping is important. I think it's much more likely that those letters were taken by the captain of one of the trading ships from Sandakan to Labuan, put into the post office in Labuan,
Right.
where the stamp was put on. It was cancelled with the Labuan Bar Council and the CDS of Labuan, and then forwarded on from there in a system which was already operational.
No, it's possible, but I think we'll have to agree to differ.
I think you ought to have a look at the dates.
Is there any documentation that in any of the early Sandakan newspapers that says we have a stock of stamps on hand, or something that would indicate that
There was no newspaper at all. The company hadn't even been formed.
Yeah, but there were settlements in Edapura, before the company was formed.
Yes.
It seems very strange that the stamps of Labuan would be in Sandakan, though. I agree with Peter.
Okay, but I mean, there was a functioning post office. I would suggest a postal arrangements. I would suggest actual postal arrangements. I would suggest in Sandakan.
Is there any documentation for that?
I don't know, but I mean, I'm saying going back to Labuan, where there were pre-stamp mail coming from the bird.
Yeah, John, I think the issue is there are two separate aspects to this, in my view. One is, did the writer of the letter have an opportunity in Sandakan to purchase Labuan stamps there, which is a possibility. but the other question then, which is, you're suggesting that there was someone, a government official or an official, at least, sorry, not a government, of the company, but that there was some official who was then responsible for the letters transit to Labuan to enter the formal postal service. In order to say there was a postal service in Sandakan, it seems to me you have to have an official who accepts it in a sort of legal sense. Otherwise, yes, it's possible that someone there had a stock of stamps which they sold. But as Peter suggested, having, even if you bought the stamp and stuck it on, you then gave it to somebody like the captain to take it to Labuan, to put it into the formal postal service. And the captain could do that as a favour without being in any legal sense part of a postal process.
Yeah, okay, but look at what happened a little bit later after the first stamps of North Borneo were issued in 1883. You have straight settlement stamps are actually, it's the only way you're going to get mailed out to the UK or elsewhere via Singapore. Now, at that stage, surely we would accept that straight settlement stamps were available in the North Borneo Post Office in Sandakan. Only would have been there, nowhere else, and certainly not in any of the outlying settlements in North Borneo, for to be stuck onto the envelope and actually acquire a North Borneo Bars Council. Did they not?
Well, yes, partly. Don't forget Kudat was probably the capital at the time. And I think you'll find that there are combination covers from Kudat with straight settlement stamps on. And I'm perfectly content that there was a post office of some sort, both in Sandakan and Kudat, after 1883. But your Pollock letters are pre that.
1882. So just prior to that, I would suggest that a postal post office had been set up, although they had no stamps at that time. Maybe, I mean, I think, well, that's my supposition. I mean, it'd be interesting to go back to actually look at and I should do that. Well, because there was no Gazette until when? 1883 for the official North Borneo paper.
Anyway, John, well done. I have to go, but well done. Really good.
Thank you.
I've seen that twice now in 3 days, 4 days a week. Yeah.
Oh, dear, you're glutton for punishment.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.
I would suggest that if there was some kind of arrangement with North Borneo from Labuan, it should be recorded in the annual reports to the Colonial Office from Labuan. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the Colonial Office reports.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, 1882. Yes. Oh, I mean, there certainly will be around from Labuan. I have some. I don't know if I've got that from that period. Certainly got an 1885 one, a report to the Colonial Office.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, there we are. So, yeah.
Okay. I'm conscious we've had just the hour. I think perhaps at this point we'll conclude. John, thank you for that. A fascinating introduction to those two the early pictorials from the region. So thank you for that. Thank you for everybody who's attended. I hope it's been an interesting opportunity, particularly for those in North America. And if you'd like to give some feedback to Adrian, possibly even offer to do a talk, then perhaps we could arrange in a month or two for a follow-up event, which we'd be happy to do. So offers of talks and just whether you'd like an occasional meeting of this sort, we'd be happy to facilitate it. So,
yeah, Roger, thanks,
yes.
thanks very much for organizing the timing. This folks out here certainly helps us, and from time to time, if we continue this way, it'll keep us interested and active to a large extent, I hope. But appreciate the thoughts and the remarks as well. And thank you too, John. It was excellent.
Thank you. Well, thank you for coming, so to speak.
Right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, whether it's a few hours this evening or whether you've got, as Sydney will have, most of the rest of the day ahead of you still. So anyway, thanks for meeting up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Yep.
Bye-bye.